Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name is Clint Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 201 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. I want to try to show you a little bit of what I've accomplished. I've worked the edge, the perimeter around here down. It's still high everywhere, so I've got room for feathers. I can still take it down another, half inch to an inch, depending on where it's at. This here, the elbow is still about an inch high, but I want to develop her arm with the stone here, and then I'll clear it out. What I'm working on at this point is I'm working on putting this drapery together over the leg. Now, in order to keep her from being too heavy, I've got to use the drapery to telegraph her anatomy, and I've talked about that. What I'm gonna try to bring the camera over and try to move the light around some, and see if I can show you some of what I've done, some of what I haven't done, and some of what I'm planning to do. Okay, and to give you an idea on how it looks, because right now, looking on the camera, this is all fairly smooth. I don't want to carve it completely. Yeah, I want to get it really close, but I'm going to have to lower this hip as well because she's not that huge, and so I'm going to have to lower that. The idea is that she's got the belting will, and this can go up a little bit more. The belting is across her abdomen. Okay, pretty much from her ribs down to her, approximately her navel. So the idea is that her groin is here. This is covering her stomach, and this is just under her, where her breast would be and where her rib cage is where this will tie in. And it's pretty common to see those done with a high waist. The idea of the waist would be up here, and it would cover everything. And so having a wider wrap, does the same thing. But I'm trying to reduce volume here in order to make it obvious that her hip is not way outboard, far away from her center. Her hip is where it should be in her leg. So there's still some stone here that's got to come off to help direct the eyes that this leg is right. As this develops, and I'm some of y'all probably noticed on the model, this is a little different than the model. This is a little deeper and lower. I can still move this up some, but I can't move it up a lot because I'll lose all my volume. It's more important that as you put this together, if you're not pointing the job one-to-one, the whole thing, where you're pointing down this, and it absolutely has to be that way. You got liberty here, like I've got liberty. It's more important that these folds and that this drapery flows properly in regards to what it telegraphs as far as what's under it, and with gravity. If you have something that drops pendant, you have to have a reason for it, and that goes right back to visual noise. You want your folds to explain to the viewer very obviously what they are, because that will help them be easy to understand, be easy to comprehend and digest in your mind, and you won't stumble at them. This fold, for example, this fold starts up here at her waist, okay? This is trapped. So you've got fabric that's trapped here, and it pulls down, and it would go straight to the ground, right? But it's trapped behind the leg, behind the ankle. There's tension here. So in this area, it's got to reverse, and if there's shape on this as well, and this is pendant, it's going to change directions to get that slight reverse in one plane, and then it's going to change directions in another plane. So it has a bend here and then a further bend this way, and then it cups around the back. And so I'm going to sink this just a little bit down here at the bottom where you can't really see it, but it's like it is on the model. I'm limited with access because of the feathers down here. I still got material for the feathers, and so I want to be able to cut my margin, my 2-inch margin, and then start putting my feathers together, so that I've got a nice couple of feathers that flow out here. And some of this will have to be finished as that feather is finished, so it's way to the back, to give the most projection. But as this drops and I lose the material in between these folds, your skinnies are up. Okay? I'm going to try to move back with the camera a little bit, and I'm going to try to move the light forward. I don't know if I got to hold the camera or if I can put it on the stand and explain it. But let's check this out. I hope it's visible. It's hard to understand how y'all see this, if you're looking at it just on a little phone screen or a regular computer. It's hard to tell what you can see and what you can't. I'm hoping that you can see that this is not as thick, heavy as it was. Her top is still a little heavy in there, and her waist is very wide and heavy. Part of that is because neither side has really been sunken much. This side is still really high. This hasn't cut back in, and that thickens her up, because if this is her center, this is going to drop another inch or more, and that will change the way this fold looks and these folds. So, but let me see how this looks if I can sit down and maybe just drop the light right on here. I think you can see the lines. Let me get my pencil. What I've been doing, okay, I haven't done a lot in here. This is just as I've worked it in. You can see the tool marks going this way for the most part. And if I can get, yeah, they're all of these tool marks go like this. The tool marks have to look appropriate for what the folds are. And we'll get there, because like this is here and this goes onto the tension, and then there's lines like this, but there's also lines like this, and that don't make sense. So these will have to be evened out. I probably will reverse these lines to have these lines go like this. So they're at 90 degrees, and they will flow from this area of tension away, as opposed to coming and ending it. They'll be pendant here. Let's see if I can move this over a little bit. Right here, this is still flush. Okay, there's no undercut. This fold is supposed to go under here, and so when this is finalized, I will relieve this under here. This will be cut away. There'll be, in order to create a dark space, there'll be some depth there. And then I'll probably try to telegraph this fold up here by having the stone go up and then have a reverse or change of direction right here to indicate that this fold goes under this fabric and that this fabric goes over. These folds, I'm slowly working back. This one here will go back probably, I don't know if it'll probably go back that far. I'm working it careful because I don't want to push off a big chunk. A lot of this is being done, I don't know if I can find it. Well, I've got a small 9-point right here. I've got a 9-point that's a 3/8 instead of a 1/2 inch. You can see the difference, see how much smaller it is? And that allows it to do two things. It runs faster, but it has more clearance. Actually, three things. It has more clearance, but because it's smaller and getting the same hit, it digs faster. And so it's ideal for working out this channel and slowly blending it. Now, if you look in the channel, I don't know if you can really see, comparing, it's my best light in the world. Hang on. There's plenty of tool marks here from axing it, okay? This is all 9-point. And some of that can be left in these deep valleys. And what that'll do is that will cause more shadow as the light will not handle as well. It'll darken it, create a little different value in that area, because there'll be some, there we go. It'll create some value that won't be quite as bright as on here. And that's what we're talking about. We have different values on this stone. But as I smooth this up, it will accentuate these folds, and I'll have to be very aware of how my lines work in order to represent the way this fold works, because these folds will typically have more tension in the valley where they lead out to both sides. Grab my pencil. If the fold goes over like this, then it's coming around. You've got lines coming around your fold like that, okay? And here, the folds would be going out and out. And so our tool marks need to go like this. And so I'll come back in and, we'll work to code this to try to get this blended up really well. And I'll probably have to finish part of it with smaller round chisels on a cove in order for them to fit. Let me hang the camera back up. Discuss this just a little bit more. By leaving this on, you can see how the auto balance on the camera totally wipes this out, and how the incandescent, because this is an actual halogen bulb, gives you a very yellow value to your, very yellow color to your light. I'm going to back this up. Is that any better? Let's try it like this and see. As I'm making these folds, like I said, these folds really need to look like they're just falling, that they're pendant, that the only thing affecting them is the stiffness of the fabric or lack thereof, gravity, and the posture of whatever it's over. So that there isn't any discord when you look at this. This line's going back, pushing it back as far as I can. I got to clean this edge up, and I'll clean this. And because this is rough, remember I said we had a little bit of undercut in here. I've got to work with those two limiting factors as I use, for the most part, I'm using a 2-blade to lower this on a diagonal, on a bias, so I'm just developing that edge, and then I can push off this other material. Using this small 9-point to rough this off, and then trying to finish and blend it both with like a bush chisel and straight chisels, some flat. Most of this around the edges I'm doing with a smaller hand machine. I got a 3/4 inch. 3/4 inch is just, it doesn't put as much energy in, it goes slower, and it's easy to take the big chisel, the big hand machine, take a really sharp chisel and just go right down here and cut this into shape. And that works well in the beginning, but when you start getting to the finished portion of it, I think it's more judicious, more pragmatic to go in here and work it down, with a multi-blade tool for the most part, and scraping it and vigorously cutting it, because you will induce energy and you'll find a spot. Sometimes the stone will have an area that's a different hardness. Sometimes it will have lines. Does, you know, and that's just the way the stone forms. It's not a crack. You can put water on it. It doesn't hold water. But there is a difference, and you can impart energy, and what will happen is that line, what you'll end up doing is you'll dig on it, and it'll blow out on one side or the other to that line and stop. And so then you've got to fix it. I've been having trouble with these tools stalling. It's really aggravating me because they're not old machines, they're pretty new machines, and I've been working to dress them. If you have a tool that stalls a lot, check your chisel. Whether this will really, I don't think this will show. These are both, you know, Andy always said to keep a crown on them, small, just a small, very small radius, and they'll hit harder, okay? They may, I don't know that really is the way they're designed to do. But what will happen is as you use your chisels, they'll tend to mushroom a little bit. They don't mushroom like a big, you know, like a hand point. If you're flogging with a 4-pound or 6-pound hammer or whatever. But they'll raise like a foil lip. And that foil lip can hang up when you put it in the tool. What really hurts, buddy, is when that little foil lip pinches the web of your finger when you're going to stick it in, or your finger, you know, you have your web of your finger, you go to put it in like that, and it'll just jam that right in there and just, it'll get your attention. But when you clean that off, it's important not to taper the sides leading up to this excessively. If you make that top tapered to where it goes up and then it goes in, and then you got your flat on top. If that taper is very big, it will cause your machine to stall because it'll jam up in there, and that's not ideal. So I'm gonna do some work. I don't know if how this will show, but I'm wanting to start on her other shoulder and open that above her other shoulder beside the head and start developing her head very shortly. But I wanted to get these outer folds together to help me really understand how well this other side is, because her foot's going to be, you know, here near the center line, the over there, the center line, her toes and feet sort of straddle the center line. So this is going to be her other leg is right here, which means this is the center here. That foot comes down and that foot's in the center, so she's got her balance. Okay, and so this leg is tipped across her center just a little bit with that knee, and that's a nod towards innocence, you know, towards, you know, understanding she's presenting herself with purity. Okay, she's not wide open to the world. So, but I'm going to keep pushing these back, and then I'm going to see if the camera if you can really see as I smooth this up. And then I'm going to get up and open up that other side so I can start putting her head together and understand really where her head needs to be. But this is coming well, and this is thinning her up as it needs to, without being excessive. She's looking really good. And as I take this down, I think it's going to change the way she looks a lot. So we'll be back in a bit. As I'm working this, you know, with my wide scrapers and regular chisels and everything, and smoothing this up, now I'm getting into this rough area. Remember I told you I had some undercut? This is where I roughed it in. This is part of why it's important to practice working areas down, because we just want to really work the high spots in order to lift this as much as we can, instead of going right in here and digging this out smooth. It becomes sort of second nature. I'm going to try to set the camera up to show you me working on a little bit, but most of this is coming out really well. Now over here on some of these folds, as we finish the job, I'll go in, and this needs to be a distinct line. Like when I say don't check a line, I'll have to check a line in here and really make a nice distinct fold. That's the very last thing you do so you don't weaken this at all. If we put a line in there, you can't move it, and it makes it fragile. It could pop off. I want to set the camera up and see if I get where it shows a little bit while I'm working, and try to smooth that off to show you what I'm doing. Some of this heavier work, I am using a 1-inch machine just to go a little bit faster. While you're learning, use a smaller machine and go slow, because you'll make less. There'll be less wreckage. The wreckage you make will take longer to do. Okay, so let's see if we can set this up and show you what I'm working. Let's see if we can see better. I'm gonna move the light, grab the camera. Okay, see there's still a little rough here, but the vast majority of this is pulled down. I'm gonna break this top edge off here, and then we'll come back and look at it. Take a little bit here off and just blend that, and most of that's gonna just disappear. So that's on the back side, okay? Be right back. Take a look at this. I see almost all of this is smoothed up. I still got to axe it, but there's one low spot right there. Play the light just a little bit. Okay, you can see that one pit right there. So I'll just blend this. I'll probably lower this a little bit here, and that'll help bring that up. And then I can move that fold over just a little because it's high right here. I push the top in, and I can blend this down and move this down to thicken that, and then that little piece, when I blend that, that's all going to disappear. So it's coming really good. All right, that cleaned up really well. It's the low spot's right there, and it's pretty well indistinguishable. There just isn't anything there. Sometimes fixing the low spot has more to do with fixing everything around it, leaving that low spot alone. So, see how this looks. Yeah, that leg's looking really good. That hip's coming in. You still have to sink this a little bit. I'll push that down to where it's pretty close to behind this fold. Get rid of that height, and we'll blend that in. She's looking really good. I haven't studied anybody I can see that's the same size, just for comparison. So I think we can wrap this video up. My name is Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Sculptor and Student with a Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.